Okay, guys, so today's call is all about hydration and electrolytes. We call this hydration and electrolytes personified. And the key thing you're going to need for today's call is a glass of water. Can't be a cup of water because you could have anything hidden in there. I know what you guys are doing. It's all key. Glass of water is really important. Now, those on the live call, you're going to make yourself accountable with this game by clicking on the chat button, the same button that you can click on for any questions during today that get answered at the end. And I want you, because everyone knows about water, right? It's part of your day. It may be mixed in with other things, but there's some form of hydration you get through your day. So I want you to choose one word that you think will come up relatively regularly in today's 13-minute call, basically. So 30 minutes from here. So choose one word that you think I'm going to say regularly and put that in the chat. You have 30 seconds. We have water has come up. Hydrate has come up. Water, Alberto, you've got to choose a different letter, a different one that's already had. We've got first has come up. Guys, you've got 20 seconds left. Drink from Jane. Nice. Keep them coming, guys. Oh, Dan got in first with drink. Jane, you need another one. Glass from Alberto. Perfect. Brilliant. We need a couple last ones from the live call. Water's been taken, Jane. Last chance. You've got 5 seconds. Think of a word. Anything. Fantastic. Okay, guys, so as I let the last few people in and we're running through those, bottle is Maria's. Oh no, bottle was Jane's. Go again, Maria. Guys, so if you're just logging in here, choose a word that you think I'm going to say regularly today. Add it into the comments, and that is your word. Whenever I say bottle, water, first, or glass, you grab your drink and you just take a sip. My word for today is going to be, oh, you've just stolen it, Maria. It was going to be electrolyte. Well played. My word is going to be for today, H2O. Okay. I say that twice. So all good, guys. You've got yours in. We're just waiting for lovely. So one person just joined into the call. Add a direct message. Just need one word for today. And that word, if you're on replay as well, choose that one. That is going to be your interaction for today. At any point you can ask questions, and you do that by putting it into the chat. And every time I say that word, you are going to plain and simply grab a drink and go from there. So I just want you to have a little sip of drink. Right, getting into the subject today. There is so much we can talk about with the topic of hydration or water. I know what your buzzwords are. This is fun. But I want you to note that you've got all of the notes here ready to go in your online on the internet. Now, I'm going to share this with you. We have a Personify website, which has got articles, a variety of key articles here, guys. And these articles also include water, but specifically an article that's called Hell No H2O. Okay, so with this one, what I'll do is I'll share that screen now, and hopefully you guys can see that. So that's coming up here. And that screen itself, as I just maximize it, is specifically sharing a little bit about what we talk about today. 3 topics we go into. We cover hydration and electrolytes with health, and also, do it again, hydration and electrolytes with performance. Okay, so the first part we basically have already written down on the screen that you can see in front of you. So as I have a look over those, make sure you're having your drink every time your keyword comes up, guys. And you've got to stay tuned for this. You can see some of the real key parts here. Now, as I mentioned on this article, there is so much we can discuss about water, because water is a key part of every single cell in your body to function effectively. So that is essential for the heart, the cardiovascular system, which obviously we come into with performance. But from a health point of view, that affects your blood pressure. So the less water you have, or the more dehydrated you are, the higher your blood pressure is going to be, because your heart's going to have to work harder to pump blood around your body. And therefore, especially if you've got family history of heart issues, which is the biggest killer in the world, nice and light for today, Ben, but that is something that a lot of us actually have family history of. So this is really functional from a health point of view. But what about a day-by-day point of view? Well, further down, I talk here about focus. I talk here about work in the afternoon. One of the reasons that many of you have come onto the 1% Athlete program initially, because of those dips in energy or mood as we move through the day. So with that in mind, increased hydration can also, has been improved to help with focus at work and also mood as we move forwards through the day. You're less likely to be irritable on the school run, etc. and so forth. Concentration, mood, focus, brilliant. So what about other key systems? As I move further down, you can see stuff, interesting words here that I know was nobody's buzzword. You can see information about other key systems like digestion. So with this in mind, it is essential to ensure that digestion is regular. That also has been associated with the amount of water you drink to help dissolve soluble fiber. I won't go too much into the science here as I want to make sure we get the key points over it. But again, that can be a question you guys can ask if needed. So dehydration can also impact other areas. It's been associated with headaches. There's a lot of mixture in the research with that. But equally, if it's just this water-like substance, like H2O, then it's nice and easy just to get it and utilize it through the day so that potentially it can reduce your risk of trigger headaches or other things it's associated with in some of the research there as well. Generally, as you can see here, this covers so many different areas. I talk here about flushing out toxins. That can be with sports massages or impacts if you have too much salt and minerals in the diet that lead to kidney issues. So it can help with getting rid of kidney stones as well. And then as we move into the performance side, we talk about lubricating the joints. So helping with some of the actual things like back and knee pain. If you're dehydrated, you're more likely to have these issues, according to the most regular research that comes through in terms of sports rehab. And then the one that most people were probably expecting us to go along the lines of is how water can aid weight loss, or what I know as satiety. So how your cravings affect this. And Dan has done loads and loads of work with you guys. And what I've been so impressed with from every single one of you that I've spoken to about your nutrition up to this point from starting is that you guys understand your trigger points. You know when that you are most likely to make poor decisions that lead to poor routines, or that are more likely to get you to choose a food that isn't in line with your goals, or a few foods that are in line with your goals. I definitely have noticed that was the first thing I learned being in this group. So have you considered water? Is water one of those? Because dehydration can make you feel hungry and crave certain foods. So grab I was going to say a large glass, but because of the trigger points and trigger things we've talked about as words, grab a large bottle of water and sip on it through the day and see if those cravings start to subside. It's all about the H2O, right? I feel like I'm trying to sell it here. So that's all key. So I talk a bit further on, and if you look over this article, and guys, personifyfitness.co.uk, just click on this article button here that I've just selected here. You've got loads of things there, from some great articles from a mental health point of view, from rehab that Laura Southey's written, to information about cramping and carb loading and a variety of other key factors. And that carb loading is where we start as we move through this next section. Okay, I'm going to leave that little one there up, and we're going to go from those. Remember, any questions, please share in the comments in the chat box itself. So with this in mind, we move on to performance, the second part of today. And carbs is a key thing, especially endurance performance. You've heard about carb loading, adding carbohydrates into your days or the days before a half marathon and marathon. And what carbohydrates do is they hold water. They hold the water within the double, within the food itself. So if you imagine a bowl of, let's go with oats, a bowl of oats for breakfast, you pour in the water to the top and you leave it for the same time it would be in your digestive tract, a couple of hours, let's say, 2 to 3 hours. What happens to the water? Add it into the chat straight away, guys. What happens to that water? Those that have been on my calls before, you'll know. what happens to the water after a couple of hours? It soaks into the oats. That lady has already been on my call. She knows the answers. So what happens is the oats absorb the water, okay? Just the same thing happens with a high level of carbohydrates, bread, oats, whatever it may be, pasta, pizza, etc., in your digestive tract. And then it gets released from the body. I won't go through details, but you know the case. So with that in mind, that means you're getting rid of a lot of the water there from your body naturally. So if you increase your carbs, thus you should also increase your water intake. So what about performance? Well, are you a sweater? Do you sweat a lot? If so, how much? How do you know? Complete a sweat test. How, Ben? Well, especially if you're training for half marathons, somewhere in between, or further, the best thing you can do is put some scales into your bathroom or your downstairs area, etc., before you go running. So downstairs bathroom for me is ideal. Strip off, jump on the scales, measure the amount in kilograms, get changed. That's essential, by the way. Go for your run, as you can see. Come back and ideally run at the target pace you're looking to do and half of the distance that you're looking to run at. So if it's a 10K, look to do a 5K at your target pace, for example. If it's a marathon, you can do a half marathon, or you can do a quarter marathon, 10.9K, etc. Come back and measure your weight again, minus the clothes, measure your weight, and you have 2 readings in kilograms. However, for 1 kilogram lost, you're losing 1 litre of water. Okay, so the key thing, if you're not sure about the maths and stuff, so if you lose 2 kilograms, that's 2 litres. But just message me your start and your finish kilograms, and also, or the difference, and also how far you've ran. You then double it if it's half the distance, and that is the amount you're most likely to lose in similar conditions at similar pace. Thus, you know how much you're losing in performance. But Ben, how do I recoup what I'm looking to lose? Well, the key things are electrolytes, okay, guys? So the electrolytes are typically made from sodium, magnesium, and potassium. I'm just gonna have a little look over the words as I go through there. Hydrate water first, and glass. So with those in mind, you are looking to replenish what you lose in the salts lost in sweat. Sodium is not salt. It's half salt, half chloride. Without going into the science, that is a good way of starting to replenish the sodium. So you lose that in the sweat. Now, magnesium is essential because what happens is if you get dehydrated on endurance runs, you're most likely to cramp. Or, as we've mentioned at the beginning of this chat, every single cell needs hydration to perform adequately. You want to run a PB, thus you're going to need every single cell on point. So with that in mind, what we're looking to do is replenish what we lose. We lose sodium, magnesium, potassium through sweat. Okay, the amounts that we lose are determined by your individual status and how fast you're running, the terrain, the temperature. A couple other factors too. For example, if you're fighting off a cold, cough, a virus, etc. So with this one, it's key to replace the sodium for the salts, the magnesium to stop yourself from re-cramping, and the potassium together with the other two helps you to absorb water into your body in the opposite way to what happens if you're carb loading and the water's getting released from your body. Okay, so how do I know exactly how much to replenish? Well, I would seek further support here. There's a guy called Andy Knowles, who's known as the endurance coach based on Madeira Drive. Personally, a few of the Personify guys, especially within the Personify Marathon, and myself have been to see him this last month, and he will do a sweat test where he will establish exactly what electrolytes you're losing, thus how much to replenish. And I finish off this call today with Q&A. So if there's anything that's taken your interest so far today, please put it in to the chats there. We've got 1 or 2 questions already. And in fact, 2 questions. So one directly to me, one open. So I'm going to start off there. And I note that I'm into the last few seconds of today's call to make it on point. So first of all, the question I've been asked here is there such a thing as too much hydration? I'm guessing too much water in that respect. Yes, if you are to have significantly large amounts of water, it can also do the opposite effect to the positive benefits you have in terms of it dilutes your typical processes. So with this in mind, and I'll cover that with this next question that's been asked to me, but with this in mind, it's important to note that anything you do on the hydration, water, drink, etc., H2O point of view, is really important that you balance that correctly in terms of you slightly progress it. And that is my first tip. Second question we've had here is, how do you get the balance correct? Well, you know what you currently have, whether it's Diet Coke or water or soup or whatever you're getting as your hydration levels in, coffee, tea, etc. The key thing is you can't beat plain and simple water with a little bit of electrolyte. When do you take electrolytes? Is the next question that's come up to me directly. I take those just before an endurance run, normally in 30 minutes going into my endurance run. If I'm running for more than 60 minutes at a PB pace, so for example, a half marathon, I would have another one during. If it's a marathon, I would have that every 30 minutes. Can you have too much electrolytes is another question that has come up directly to me. Yes, you can. So again, it comes down to that question we just asked, getting the balance. Now, for you personally, I would recommend following my 5 top tips, first of all, which will cover this, and also making sure you don't change anything significantly. So individuals on the marathon have had salt sticks and they really don't want to cramp, so they've eaten all the salt sticks. As a result, that can impact your hydration negatively and move forwards. The key thing is you know what you currently have. So tip number 1 is going to be to carry a bottle or have a glass on your desk ready to drink for convenience, okay? Similar to how Dan talked about having those unhealthy snacks at the top of the cupboard, locked away, whatever it might be, to make it less convenient at the end of the day. We look to make water hydration as convenient as possible. Secondarily, we look to make sure that if you're looking to increase your water, you just do 500 milliliters per day, keep that going for a week. So all you're going to do is add 1 typical size bottle to your daily intake. Okay, guys. The second tip is more of a solution minded. So these next 2, if you have poor digestion, look to drink your water at room temperature. Okay, so rather than having too cold, too hot, having room temperature is proven to help with digestion. It means your digestive tract doesn't have to work as hard. But what about bladder issues? Again, a challenge with drinking more water, we're only talking about 500 milliliters more at this stage, right? In terms of health, is if you have bladder issues, for example, you need to go to the loo a lot if you drink more water. How do we work at a solution around that, Ben? Well, small and often sips is going to mean that you don't overload your bladder, and your bladder soon adapts to meet the demands of it, just like your legs adapt to the Personify process in terms of running to run faster. So that's key. Last 2 top tips, and great question for your top tips on there. That's added loads of information onto this and 3 minutes more than I wanted to talk for. Start your day with a glass of water. That's 2 of you there. A glass of water, and have it as a large one, just so that you start on the right levels. We've mentioned that hunger or satiety, being satisfied with your levels of cravings, is associated with water. Why not kickstart the day well? And last of all, electrolytes. There's a question here that says, what form do you get electrolytes in? There's so many. Typically, it's like an effervescent drink where you just put it into your water. I always carry a couple spare with me on a long distance run like a marathon, because they give out water, you can add it to that. I have it as a sachet, so really easy to travel around. It's about this big. It's just sodium, magnesium, and potassium. So typically, most are anyway. Some of them have a little bit of sugar in them if they're carb-based, but most of them are simply just those 3. The ones I do anyway are. So you can get those from supermarkets. You can get them as a tube where you put like the equivalent of like a Barocca style into a drink, or you can get them as a sachet so you can utilize that nice and easily. Guys, that concludes today's call. Thank you very much for watching that on the live setup as well. So that was absolutely brilliant. And like I say, brilliant questions as well from the live team. Guys, that is fantastic. Hopefully your bladders are getting a little bit of a greater work here as well. I'd recommend stopping drinking at around about 8 p.m. Or 8:10 at this stage, so that you can just get relaxed for bed. You don't wake up in the middle of the night, but hopefully you drank most of that water in front of you, or your glass, or your hydration, or even you've added an electrolyte to it, or I'll stop that. You've enjoyed your water. Anyway, we get to the point. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found that useful. Any questions from the replay, please share with us in terms of adding that into your next set up the next point that we look to go from in those. So over to me, I'll stop sharing there and just say thank you very much for all your feedback, and I hope you're enjoying the challenges at the moment. We move back on to our next topic next week at 7:45. Cheers, team.